Hi guys, welcome back to my channel. If this is your first time here, my name is Anna. I'm a clinical psychology doctorate student and I make videos about real life applications to psychology. So if that sounds like something you're interested in, go ahead and hit like and subscribe. In this video, we're going to be talking about reframing the concept of anxiety cognitively. But before we get started on that, I do have a little announcement. You might be able to tell, but I'm wearing my own merch today. And this is, yes, Countess Chianti, the cat that you see in so many videos, and I'm hoping she comes to visit today as well. I realize it's a little optimistic to think that other people are gonna buy my merch with my cat on it, but I know that there are a few Countess Chianti super fans out there. There was one person that commented on one of my videos, I would die for Countess Chianti, so if you really like her, if you think she's cute, consider this merch. I also have other stuff that's not completely based on her, like this face mask. This says intersectional feminist. Gonna wear this when I go to Trader Joe's right after this. And the thing I want to highlight about the merch is that it's actually really soft. I ordered a medium for this because I just wanted something oversized and comfortable to wear in the house. And it's not like cheap material whatsoever. It actually is very comfortable. But no pressure, if you don't want to buy my merch, that is absolutely fine. I'm grateful just to have you here watching my videos. So if you clicked on this video, you might be thinking, I hate anxiety, it ruins my life, it is the worst thing ever. And I'm not gonna sit here and tell you that anxiety is fun. I know firsthand that it is absolutely not. And I'm a very anxious person. I'm not going to invalidate your distress. And this is an exercise for me as well as for you. So in this video, I want to encourage you to reframe the way you think about anxiety from something that is debilitating in your life to something that serves an adaptive function that is there to protect your safety and to ensure your survival rather than something that, wants to make your life miserable. So I'm going to go through different types of anxiety right now and list in what way they are adaptive and actually serve a really important function. So I'll start with blood phobia. So for example, I always pass out when I get blood taken, or one time I passed out in class when someone was talking about internal bleeding. It's your body's way of shutting down around blood because, evolutionarily speaking, if you are starting to see your own blood, that's a sign that you're injured and that, you need to stop from bleeding out and you need to kind of calm down. And that's your body's way of preserving its energy and saying, nope, I'm not gonna be here for seeing this blood. For example, out in the wild, if a wolf bites you and you start to bleed profusely, it makes sense that your body would want you to kind of freeze and go into this unconscious mode because, your blood pressure lowers, you're not going to bleed out, you're not going to panic. Even if your blood phobia is not necessarily about passing out, if it's just the run-of-the-mill phobia, intense fear of blood, that also makes sense. We know that blood carries life-threatening diseases and illnesses, and it makes sense for us to want to avoid blood, especially if we don't know that it's ours. Moving on to any phobia surrounding snakes or insects or anything that could potentially be life-threatening, could be poisonous. My favorite Creed quote from The Office is, "You haven't lived as long as I have without a healthy fear of snakes," and I live by that. I also think it's the reason why snakes are the symbol of evil in Harry Potter, because I am convinced that they're actually fucking evil. So I don't know, it's just something about the way snakes move without legs, just slithering. I don't know, it's just sickening. My point is, it's natural to fear and avoid creatures that could potentially be life-threatening, that could potentially be poisonous, because evolutionarily they pose a threat to you. Sometimes I say that I feel like I've had a bad encounter with a snake in a past life because of how much aversion I feel to them. In reality, I don't believe in past lives. I think it's just the way it's kind of passed down in our genes. It's natural for us to fear things very intensely that maybe our ancestors were hurt by. And my point is, it's very natural to have specific phobias, especially the ones I just listed. Another phobia, it's not technically in the DSM, but I think it's one that, people do have. It's called tryptophobia, and it's essentially a fear of holes. And at first sight, you might be thinking, holes, that's kind of weird. But, it makes sense because you're not approaching things that could potentially have things inside that are scary. Like, think of a beehive. It could potentially have bees. It's natural to fear the holes in the honeycomb and stuff. A knothole, for example, could have a life-threatening animal in it. Then, moving on past phobias, let's talk about generalized anxiety disorder, which is essentially very, very excessive worrying about a bunch of different things. Why is this one adaptive? Well, it's very future focused, planning about the best way things could be in the future. Because with something like GAD, it really is very much living in the future rather than living in the moment. Sometimes it's said that depression is people living in the past and anxiety is people living in the future. And to some degree, I sort of agree with this. So, for example, evolutionarily, planning, where you're gonna go hunt today, what time you're gonna get back before the sunset, how you're gonna set up shelter, what mate you're gonna select. All these things require future-oriented thinking. And that's kind of what generalized anxiety is, but just to a degree that's excessive, to a degree that's no longer adaptive. Moving on to OCD and more germophobia type things. So I'm talking specifically about cleanliness and order related obsessions and compulsions. Obviously, it's very adaptive to not get sick. It's very adaptive to not be living in filth. So this one, of course, makes sense. Then panic disorder is your fight, flight, and freeze mode getting activated because there's something really dangerous happening. So for example, you're not gonna stay calm when someone throws a rock at you because you have that instinct to fight, flight, or freeze, or in this case, to freeze would not be so helpful. And panic disorder, the thing about it is that it can sometimes spring up out of nowhere where you really don't know what the trigger is. And that's, when it gets to an extent that it's no longer adaptive. But in the adaptive sense of having a panic attack, it's your body letting you know there is something really wrong in the situation that I'm in right now. In terms of social anxiety, in my opinion, it's one of the lesser adaptive disorders because social connections are so crucial to our survival. So, to not have those connections because you're scared of everybody judging you is not going to really benefit you in the long run. But a case can be made that it's beneficial to, want to fit in socially or to want to not rub your social support group the wrong way, which is essentially what social anxiety is. This fear of being negatively evaluated by people is very core to avoiding and fearing other people. Also, it's natural to not trust people that you don't know very well. So in this sense, social anxiety and kind of paranoia as well can be adaptive to a degree because if someone is not, a trusted person, then it kind of makes sense to your survival to not completely trust them right away. So speaking more generally about anxiety in general, people who have anxiety tend to be very in touch with their emotions, with their bodily senses, and also with their environment. So they're hypersensitive to external cues, such as a train passing or a bright light flashing. They're also very sensitive to bodily changes like heart rate, blood pressure, other people, all different things that help you survive by paying attention to detail. And it can be annoying for it to be so sensitive that it's disruptive to your day. For example, I remember I was in class one time and there was this very faint beeping sound and it was just driving me insane. And I asked the person next to me, do you hear this beeping sound? And she said, yeah, kind of. And it was the difference between, an adaptive noticing of the beeping sound and a hypersensitivity to it. But, it can be a good thing to be so aware of your internal and external experience. For example, I know very well when I reach my maximum heart rate while working out. And I look at my watch to confirm, and it's always usually right. I know when my body is saying it's time to stop. And that's a very beneficial thing. It's also beneficial to notice when you walk into a room that other people are feeling uncomfortable or that something wrong is happening. People with anxiety do tend to be more attentive to detail, and especially in identifying anxiety in other people as well. So now let me paint you a picture. A person with no anxiety runs into dangerous or reckless situations that could put themselves or others in danger. They don't know when to run away. They don't plan for future obstacles. They live in filth. They're not scared of things that they should actually be scared of. They're not afraid of offending others. Now tell me honestly, is that something that you would want to be friends with? Is that someone you would want to be your parent, your sibling, your partner? Is that someone you would want to be? Because sure, maybe it sounds fun to live without anxiety, but in reality, if you don't have any anxiety, if you don't have any fear, you're not going to last very long, because anxiety is the thing standing in between life and death for many people. Now, I'm not trying to convince you that anxiety is a good thing once it reaches the level of, clinically elevated distress and or impairment. Of course not. It's obviously maladaptive past a certain extent, which is why anxiety disorders exist as a category. But I want you to start thinking about anxiety as something adaptive rather than something that serves to make your life worse. Your body's working really hard to keep you safe, so at least be grateful to it for trying really hard, even if it's not going about it in the best way. So instead of thinking, I hate my life, I hate that I have this anxiety, replace that thought with, this is my survival instinct, my body's trying to protect me, and even though it's overreacting in this moment, I really respect what it's trying to do. I really respect that my body and my mind cares about me. At the very least, this sort of shift in mindset can help you stop panicking over anxiety itself. It's like anxiety over having anxiety. It's a vicious cycle. So at the very least, when this anxiety comes up for you, you're not going to worsen it by freaking out over it. When anxiety comes on, let it pass through. It's not there to hurt you, so don't antagonize it and heighten it. With that being said, I realize I'm just talking about, just think of it in a different way. This is obviously not going to cure your anxiety. It's just a kind of cognitive restructuring idea, but obviously it's going to take a lot of work. You can try to put it in practice with actual worksheets, with having an anxiety journal, with, having a list of thoughts to replace your negative thoughts about anxiety. This is really just scraping the tip of the iceberg, so I really recommend you dive deep. With that being said, I hope this video was helpful. Don't forget to hit like and subscribe, and I hope you have a great day, and please stay safe.